I was trying to do this video in a weekly format, but it was too much work to do in a single week. So what I'll be doing instead is talking about all the anime of this month and giving the crown to my personal favorite. This month was wild. It was everything I was expecting for and more. The final decision was not easy for me, so let's just get started. This shit is ass. Berserk is my favorite manga of all time. Nah, that's my favorite story of all time. Yeah, call me a basic white girl, I just swing that way. Berserk is a story full of emotional and stunning moments. A tale about learning how to grow from trauma and becoming the best version of yourself. A version that would be impossible without the pain you were forced to partake in. I love Berserk, so why don't I like this? Well, this isn't Berserk. Skipping over the entirety of Guts' childhood, we dive right into his first successful victory, portraying him as a strong, dumb powerhouse and nothing else. Berserk is all about the small things. Some horrible things happened to Guts as a kid, which I won't go into bigger detail because they're way too tragic to talk about in a YouTube video. Which eventually leads him to this. When he's collecting his bounty from killing someone, the guy giving him money goes, yes, you'd be a great fit for the team. And Guts goes, no. To which the other character touches Guts and he snaps.
Don't you ever touch me!
This little glimpse showcases the effects of Guts' experience with assault, and you're probably wondering how this anime adapts this scene. They skip it. And by skipping this and Guts' entire backstory, you get an edgelord who thinks he's too good for others instead of someone that is still recovering from their trauma and finds it hard to connect to others. I want to show you this clip. Did you understand anything that was shown in the scene? No, correct? This is the entirety of Guts' childhood summed up in an awfully framed and incredibly inconsistent scene that makes you go, huh? Instead of actually understanding what this man has gone through. My other issue is the action. Dog, this looks so lame. When composing action, Kentaro Miura creates heavy emphasis on the before and after, leaving the middle part up to your imagination. By leaving this middle part, creates a much bigger reaction when you see the result of the swing. It goes from this to this. Cool, right? But you can't really do that with anime. Not without it looking lazy, which ends up in the action looking like action. There's nothing impressive about the fights in this movie. They heavily tone down the result of the swing, but more importantly, they get wrong the basic fundamental of Berserk's philosophy when it comes to action. The result of the swing is the single most important thing. It's not the move that's surprising, but it's the way Guts initiates and ends the brawl. The war sequences look horrible, and I can understand why. There are many art pieces in Berserk that depict war in a fashion and scale that's truly impressive, something that would be impossible to do in an anime without a big budget, which ends up in soldiers looking like this, and not do anything impressive aside from moving around in bad CGI. In the second episode, we face some of the same problems. The CGI is wacky, and the action is really nothing that special. But this episode is a much bigger offender of skipping content. In the previous episode, it ends with Guts joining the Band of the Hawk, a mercenary group led by Griffith, this very attractive man. Yes, he's a man. Griffith and Guts only bond for a little bit, and Guts doesn't really interact with anyone else. And then immediately in the second episode, we see Guts be all good buddies with all of them. Casca, this girl that doesn't like him, tells him how he's a brat, and he screams at her saying he's come a long way. But has he? I don't know, because I met him an episode ago. It doesn't give you a single second to get to know these characters, to like them, there's no reason to root for any of them. You don't care about them. I don't care about them either. And I read the manga. In a fight with Sod, whose design looks like a model straight out of the PS2, Guts says that Griffith is his what? His friend? Since when? You cannot convince me these two are friends by telling me. Show me their friendship. Like, you know, the manga does. Did I also forget to mention that the second episode has a 6-minute intro, which spoils the entirety of the arc being told? This Memorial Edition is supposed to be an enhanced edition of the movies that came out a year ago, but so far there is nothing new to talk about. Although episode 3 and 4 aren't as bad, they're simply unable to make anything out of itself. I cannot stress this enough. Please do not watch this adaptation if it's your first time watching Berserk. I urge you to read it, even if you're not a big manga reader. It's a story that will bring you to tears numerous times and show you the entire life of a man who is constantly belittled but always pushes through. Don't watch the anime. There is a dog that can see the future. It's enough reason to watch this anime, but what makes this season of the anime stand out is the focus on Twilight's spy life. It focuses less on the humor, which is still present and just as hilarious, but more on Twilight and the world surrounding him. It's a messed up world for a detective. We meet terrorists that have bombs strapped to dogs. The main tragedy of this series is abandonment, and I feel like the previous season focused on Anya finding a solution to her abandonment issues with his newfound family, and now the focus will be on Twilight's own abandonment issues. Speaking of Twilight, there's this really cool chase scene in which Twilight dresses up as a prime minister and almost shoots a dog. Anya finally adopts a dog and gives him the best name for a show about spies. My one and only complaint with Spy X Family: I don't like the incesty brother trope, and I especially don't like this guy. Half of this episode focuses on Yor's cooking, which is cute, but when you tag her with two of the most obnoxious characters, it becomes a pretty tedious episode. The latter half focuses on a mission in which Frankie, the adoptive uncle, wants to ask a girl out. Ultimately, he gets rejected and we get the most important fact about Twilight.
俺たちみたいな人種は他人にいらん情を抱くなって。付き合えたとしてもきっとうまくいかない。
妻子持ちに言われても慰めにならん。
This is the progression of the character I was expecting. Twilight is always reserved when it comes to getting used to his family life, always using the excuse that it's for the mission, but I can't wait for him to show his true colors towards them. It's something simple, but the story has been leading up to it. I also want more mini arcs that last a couple of episodes. I was amazed by how much was said and told in these couple of episodes compared to many of the episodical ones. Again, there is a dog that can see the future and a girl that can read his mind. Watch this show. Now this is my most anticipated anime of the season, after Chainsaw Man. Mob Psycho is a world filled with lovable characters that struggle with believable issues. Mob is currently struggling with the fact that he's unsure of what he wants to do next in life. It's funny how Mob is this ultra powerful being that has an entire conspiracy cult that prays to him, but he couldn't care less about it. Mob struggles with the real things a middle schooler is thinking about. The girl he likes is going to a different school. Everyone in his club seems to know what they plan to do for a living. But Mob, he's scared of being a shut-in that wastes his years away in an apartment doing absolutely nothing. Reagan reminds him that he's still a kid, that he has time. But when you're in middle school, you don't think about it. Once you get into high school, you're judged a lot more by your qualifications. For an average student such as Mob, that's scary. I wasn't really the best student in middle school or at the beginning of high school, and those mistakes made it impossible for me to get into a proper university. It didn't matter that my grades drastically increased by junior year. What happened, and it felt like I couldn't go up in the world. Thankfully, community colleges exist, and although they should be free and shouldn't charge students, they take just about anyone, and they have transfer programs to better universities. But going back to Mob, it's hard, man, but I do strongly believe that Mob will find an answer. The first two episodes of Mob aren't anything revolutionary when it comes to the series, but one, the writer, always implants these ideas into the viewer for them to explode at a climax later on, and he proves my point exactly. Although the beginning of the season has been rather slow, now the story is really rolling. All of Seasoning City is against Mob, and now it's Mob versus the world. There's a big reveal in this episode that was not meant to be emotional, but made me rapidly tear up. So we're seeing such a wholesome and hopeful show turn dark, but I'm very excited for what's to come. This is definitely not the anime of the month, but I do have high hopes for Mob Psycho next month. This is just like Squid Games. I don't know who came up with the idea of soccer players going through a battle royale to have someone come up on top, but man did they pull it off. Blue Lock is crazy enough as a concept, but in execution, it constantly redefines what the sports genre is about. When watching a sports anime, you expect the value of a team and friendship to be the main focus. Blue Lock says, fuck that, and instead brings you to a competition full of egotistical people trying to outbeat one another. I love the visual cue with the eyes. It shows how these characters are lost to the drive, and the story also gives you time to know these characters and how the arena of Blue Lock works, which is great. By expanding lore dumps throughout the series, the information never feels overwhelming, and you get to understand the message and purpose of the rules in Blue Lock. I can appreciate the author having this arena feel as realistic as possible. We get to see more of Highlights Guy, who says he has a monster in him. This monster is obviously a symbol of their ego, or something along those lines. He claims that our main character has one too, and before we know it, it's time for our next match that will end up eliminating most of our team. I really hope you get kicked out by the next episode or two. That's talking about the bald-headed guy. Fucking hate that motherfucker. And how does the match go? I have a question surrounding that answer. What happens when you put a bunch of egotistical strikers in a match of soccer? Total failure. This piece of garbage is the most obnoxious character since its predecessor Bakugo from My Hero. The show also takes the time to show the need for teamwork when it comes to soccer. When you bring back soccer to its foundation, one with no proper order, how do you create the first change? How do you make that 0 turn into 1? Can't wait to see what other characters bring to the table and to see how more of them end up losing the competition. I figure the ultimate lesson of the story will be that you can take a journey of solidarity in life and should ultimately form a team of people you trust and love to truly value the things and actions in life. But for now, God, that's so cool. Tatami Time Machine Blues came to a quick end, and man, what a show. But I wanted to mention that this show has some of the most rewarding foreshadowing I've seen in recent times. In the first episode, a character mentions how their shampoo seems to be stolen, so he goes back in time to find out who stole his shampoo, to which he decides to steal the shampoo before it was ever stolen, which makes the character the thief he was looking for. The funny thing is, we see the future versions in the first episode. They're just hidden by towels on top of them. This is stupidity at its finest, and the most lighthearted piece of foreshadowing ever used. It feels like the entire story was thought out from the moment they started working on it. It's a truly impressive show. It does feel like an inconsequential story, yet at the same time it teaches a valuable lesson about its characters. Spending more time with Ozu and Akashi especially made me feel a lot closer to their characters than before. There's a powerful speech about fate, and considering that the future already exists, it confirms that life is predetermined. That's a scary thought for a lot of people. The idea that everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen, it's all set in stone and there's nothing you can do about it. Akashi, the main girl, tells her main character how that's okay. The true freedom in life is still having those choices and emotions that we feel when we do something. Maybe that's why all you can do when you make a mistake is repent and try to do better next time. What would the purpose in life be if you can always go back and change it? I adore the Tatami universe. Tatami Galaxy is my favorite anime of all time. Time Machine Blues is a perfect extension to the story. I can gush about it all day, and maybe I'll make a specific video on it. But there's nothing as boring as to tell a successful love story, is there? I don't like Bleach.